My name is Patrick Achins. I'm a graduate assistant for the Transnational NGO Initiative, and I'm here today with Ms. Jo Becker of Advocacy Director for the Children's Rights Division at Human Rights Watch. Ms. Becker, thank you so much for coming today.
Sure, it's my pleasure.
Now, I know that you're a Maxwell alum, and I really appreciate you coming here to answer some of our career-focused questions. For I know many of my colleagues are, you've been in our shoes.
Right.
So, at Human Rights Watch, what does a typical day look like for you?
There's no typical day at Human Rights Watch.
None?
But one of the things that I really like about my job as an advocacy director is that I get to do a lot of different things. And so, over the course of a week, for example, I might, do a lecture like, I'm doing here at Syracuse today. I might draft a press release on one of the issues that we're working on. Maybe have a conference call with NGOs that we're working with on a particular campaign to talk about strategy. I might have meetings at the UN with, for example, UNICEF to talk about various child rights initiatives, or perhaps with ambassadors or staff from UN missions. Periodically, I go down to Washington, D.C., because sometimes we're pushing U.S.-based legislation to address, for example, child labor or child soldiers issues. So meeting with folks at State Department or staffers on Capitol Hill to talk about what they can do to advance human rights. Those would all be parts of my job.
Wow. It sounds like a very holistic career. It involves so many different types of skills and abilities. When your time at Maxwell, what did you think was the most important skill or ability that you learned while you were here?
Well, when I came to Maxwell, I had already been working for an NGO for about 7 years before I got here. And so I had some work experience behind me, and what I really wanted to explore while I was here, I was in the political science department, and one of the reasons why I went to political science is it was a very flexible program. And my real interest was social movements. How do social movements work? How do they achieve results? How can they move issues forward? And what I appreciated about Maxwell was I was able to take classes from history, from sociology, from poli-sci that sort of fit my particular interests. I think just the flexibility of the program in terms of being able to tailor it to both my background and my interest in continuing to work in the NGO sector.
Excellent. And how useful have you found that within your career? Like any particular things that you learned at Maxwell that?
I'm not sure about particular things. I mean, certainly the position that I hold at Human Rights Watch I could not have without a master's degree. So just, having the degree was very important in terms of getting myself in the door. I think, having a broader theoretical background, I did a class on international law, which was certainly very relevant to my work at Human Rights Watch. Just some of the theoretical underpinnings of the work that we do out in the real world.
Yeah, that's very important. Now, there are many students who are really interested in a career with an NGO. What advice would you give them?
Well, for the work that I do, which is, in the international human rights arena, I think there are 3 things that really are particularly helpful for new staff that are coming on board. One is, international experience. We are a global organization, and so individuals who have had internships or who have been able to work in the field in other parts of the world, whether it's, Africa, Asia, Latin America, or wherever, have much greater value to us because, they're coming with those experiences and perspectives. So international field experience would certainly be one. Secondly, I would say languages. Our advocates often, I'm monolingual. I studied Chinese years ago, but effectively English is my only functional language, and I always regret that because I have colleagues who speak multiple languages, and being able to speak French, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, whatever, is certainly a real asset in our global world and in the kinds of advocacy we do, where we're interacting constantly with actors and policymakers from all over the world. And then the third, I would say, is communication skills. Being a top-notch writer, being able to speak effectively, whether it's one-on-one or to a group, to put across your key messages and what you're asking for, I think are really essential.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming in to speak with us today.
My pleasure.